fading, knowledge fades away, but we rise together with Sensay today, capturing wisdom from hearts that inspire, building a future, lifting us higher. We're the dreamers, the seekers, the bold, turning stories to wisdom, forever to hold. Sensay, oh Sensay, we're transforming the night, knowledge to wisdom, with AI shining light. Together we soar, with our hearts unified. Sensay forever, our wisdom won't hide. From the spark of a mind to a legacy grand, we preserve every lesson across every land. With replicas of living, our voices will stay, empowering progress in every new day. We're the builders, the vision, the flame, carrying forward the wisdom we claim. Sensay, oh Sensay, we're transforming the night, knowledge to wisdom, with AI shining light. Together we soar, with our hearts unified. Sensay forever, our wisdom won't hide.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Sensay community call, and with our ever-changing and ever-improving theme tunes. I think we will have a Spotify playlist coming out very soon. I'm Dan Thomson. I'm the founder and CEO at Sensay here. And for those who are new to joining us and discovering what Sensay is a platform where you can actually capture your personal knowledge, your experience, your skills, and create a perfect personal replica of yourself to have as an extension of yourself. And that can be whether or not you want to make it available when you're not online, or when you're just through different cycles in your life. There could be if you're asleep, or if you're on holiday, or if you leave a company, to be able to keep your knowledge intact when it's there. And this can be used in a huge amount of different ways, everything from helping to draft your messages to having it as an extension of you and as a chat bot to answer your messages on Telegram or Twitter, or post on Twitter, or even have it draft your emails for you. So Sensay becomes this really powerful, personalized AI extension of you by cloning your knowledge through accessing documents and data about you, interviewing you, and understanding who you are and the way that you interact with different platforms and different people in your life. It's it's incredible to see what we've actually managed to achieve over the last couple of years in terms of getting to the stage. And I get asked every day, is this me, or is this my replica? Unfortunately for now, it's still the real me who's doing these calls, but one day that's going to change over to replica Dan taking over and giving these entire presentations for you. So welcome to us today. Welcome to the call today. Whether you're joining on Twitter or LinkedIn, whether you're watching on YouTube, or whether you're watching live or you're watching in the future, please do comment and ask any questions. Please do ask us anything, really. We've got an amazing guest today, and so it's always my pleasure to do this. Always great to involve the community and answer the tough questions that people have for us. So if you do have questions, ask them on any of the platforms: YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, or even jump into our Telegram or Discord groups, and you'll be able to find our community managers who will be able to actually start asking, be able to process the questions so that we can bring them up live on the screen at the end. We have a couple of people joining us today, so I'm going to bring them up now. We've got Gillian, who is one of our advisors, and Lars, who's our head of community. So I'll let you both do a quick little introduction for yourselves, and then we'll get on with the rest of the call.
Will I jump in first? Okay, so I'm going to apologize because there's a lag from me. So if I speak over people or come in late, apologies, technology. Anyway, I am a journalist primarily based in Ireland, south of Dublin. and I write for a lot of publications, and I write mostly in Web3, although I also write for like the Irish Times and the Irish Examiner. So I write on more, or just different topics, whatever, some financial, whatever. And I am loving this space because I know Dan. I met Dan first a little while ago. I interviewed him for a piece I was writing for Cointelegraph, and I just was quite interesting. And then we reconnected again more recently, and I'm going, oh my goodness, how fast this has all moved. So I'm learning every day, and it's a head wrecker in a nice way to be here. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. And Lars?
It's always great to be back here and sit with a lovely community that's coming in with these calls. I'm Lars, as always, head of a community. And I'm the one that's going to sit and chat and talk to you and reply to you all the time, almost 24 hours a day. And I love to be there with our community all the time.
Absolutely. And where are you in the world these days, Lars?
Right now, I am in Denmark. I am planning on a round trip to go back to Manila on a one-way ticket this time in July and travel around and actually go around to cafes to find people on vacation, because that's when you're relaxed, right? To find people for Sensay that would benefit most from Sensay's replicas within the business and everything.
You become our modern day traveling salesman then, around the cafes of Manila and the rest of the Philippines. What a horrible life that's going to be.
I love it.
Well, thanks for joining us today. I think we'll jump into our talk with Gillian. So Gillian, it'd be great to get a bit more background, I guess. You've been working in journalism for a while and PR and different aspects, but I don't know, maybe you want to give some of the sort of career highlights and where you're really working on these days.
Okay. Well, what I might do is, because I'm new to the community and they might not know my background, so very briefly, if you'll allow me, the reason why I got into this space is that I had a very traditional, normal career, and I had a traditional marriage, and I had 2 kids and a big house in the country, and I sort of decided to live happily ever after, except I didn't, and I hit divorce and recession in 2010, 2013, 2011. And my ex went back to the UK. There's a relevance to the story. It's not a sob story that I'm just deciding to tell the community, but there's a reason for it. My ex went back to the UK, became bankrupt, and gave all the debt to myself and our 2 children. And I started to think about this whole world. You can go along in your life and you're quite happy and you're just pottering along and things are happening. You go to university, you go get a job, you fall in love, you have children, and well, that's part of your journey that you want to have. And then all of a sudden, everything was upended. And I who'd never had so much as a parking ticket. Well, I had a parking ticket, but I didn't have I didn't have much going on. My crazy stuff, and mad stuff happened, and it really made me rethink everything. And as part of that process, directly, that I tried to sell my house with the crash in Ireland. I couldn't sell it for the amount that I wanted, so the banks repossessed it. I still had the debt, and I was forced into bankruptcy. And I was the first female bankrupt under the new laws here in Ireland in 2010, 2011, whatever. And at this stage, I've become a raving activist. So I was going on and on about the banks and the money and trying to understand what this all meant. And as a bankrupt, I wasn't allowed to run for public office. So I took the Irish government to the High Court, and I changed the law because I said my constitutional rights were being infringed because I wasn't allowed to run for public office. It's an arcane law that we'd inherited from the UK, where kind of based on the theories that you had to be like a man of property to vote, those sort of arcane ideas, and the bankruptcy one had stayed in for a bit. And in fact, that's the reason why, what's your man, not a penny more, he lost his seat when he became bankrupt. He lost his seat in the House of Lords because he was a bankrupt, and that law still applied to him. Anyway, so after all that craziness happened, and then I ran in Europe, as you do, as an independent against the banks, and I got 11,500 votes for that, and I was very proud about that. And it kind of it sort of gave me agency again back in my life. And then a couple of years later, I met blockchain and what we call Web3 now. I went, oh my God, this is amazing. This is how we change the world. It is so many, there's so many technologies. It's so disruptive, but it's also, collaborative and open source. So it's not like breaking down. It's breaking down maybe but building up again. And so as a result of that, I jumped in with 2 feet, and I ended up traveling around the world, chairing conferences, speaking at conferences, and meeting people. And as a journalist, it's a great opportunity to speak with people, because you have a privilege to knock on the doors of successful founders and people who are very big in this stage and ask them lots of nosy questions. And I'm very nosy, so I really enjoy that part of my job. It's very interesting, and it is a privilege. I'm joking, but it is a privilege to be able to speak to all these people. So that's where I've got to here. But the interesting thing, Dan, is that that's sort of like my background, why it's important to me, is understanding the world, because it's not the same world. And as we know, the last few months even, it's definitely not the same world as it was before. But then now joining Sensay, oh my God, my head is hurting even more. This is not fair, because the whole concept of digital twins and replicas, it is just mind-blowing. And I know Dan lives it, but I'm just coming to terms with it. And I wrote a piece for Cointelegraph, which I interviewed some other people in the space too as well, and Dan, of course, which I don't know if you can share that or not in the chat. But I don't know, it really hurt my head. And I started doing lots of other things, including with my writing. I entered a competition here locally, a writing competition, which I won, based on digital twins. It's like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I've written a short story into a novella with a new ending because of this. So ironically, this is probably the biggest jump that I joined the space in 2017, I think. But I would say the last couple of months, and in no small part due to the interaction with Dan and Sensay, it's changed my life fundamentally. Wow, again, how can that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is such an exciting thing to think about. And, I always say it's a real pleasure to get to build some kind of science fiction, really. I mean, we're building Black Mirror episodes at the end of the day. So it is exciting to see that and actually be working on it, let alone encourage and inspire people to join us on this crazy idea and actually this crazy mission to be able to do what we're trying to do. So it's great that people from all different backgrounds actually do respond in a very similar way, where the mind's blown or opened by the ideas of what this can do, and everyone's able to contribute in their own special way. So it's we've seen that a lot in the last few community calls as well, with different advisors and different team members, and showing the different aspects of what we're actually building. But you mentioned a Cointelegraph article. I think we can probably share that on the screen as well to make sure to give people.
And do you know what's interesting? My editor in the magazine said it was the best article I've written ever. That's inspiring.
Pure inspiration, obviously. No, that's great. You didn't mention that before, so that's really nice. And
then Jude, what's interesting, I was going to add in that I spoke with Daniel and your team about, I haven't done it yet. I need to create my own replica. And speaking with him, it's a lot more. It's not just a question of saying, oh, here I am. I'm a journalist and I write here and I write there and whatever. The thought behind what type of replica you want to create is very interesting. It's almost daunting, because it's not just like, oh, duplicate me. It's like, what kind of me do we want to duplicate? I think that's, and I wrote a blog, which I haven't published yet, about that, and I haven't started. I'm hoping to. We have a long weekend here in Ireland, so I'm hoping to do it over the weekend. But it raises so many questions, more questions than answers.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, that's what's exciting about about this. There's no roadmap. There's no sort of easy path to follow. It's not like, oh, I'm going to start a real estate business, and then you have to go through certain steps and certain qualifications, whatever else to get started. We're building a AI human brain for a virtual human, for lack of a better phrase for now. And then obviously there are different elements of that, of the AI side of things, and then even the Web3 side, which you've been working in Web3 for, I can't remember how long it is now actually.
2017.
Quite a while.
8-9 years.
Time flies by, doesn't it? Web3 is just such a crazy space. But it'd be good to sort of get into your understanding of the Web3 space as it is, especially around AI, because there's a lot has changed, and you've obviously everyone's naturally has been covering more AI stuff over the last 2 years since ChatGPT 3.5 really sort of exploded on the scene, and suddenly everyone rebrands themselves as an AI company. What are some of the biggest sort of trend shifts that you've seen from, I guess, the Web3 space over the last 3 or 4 years? I guess before that happened, and then after the sort of AI explosion.
Yeah, I guess a lot of the times people thought that automation and technology would replace the workers on the production line, and rightly so, and even burger flippers. Although someone said to me once, maybe people like flipping burgers. I'm not, and maybe people do, but and that was the sense of where tech was heading. It was going to make a better life, and we're all going to, not have to do those mundane, repetitive jobs. And then it became more apparent, especially with the AI, that it's the jobs that are being replaced are actually not necessarily mundane and repetitive. They can be quite highly skilled. That jobs that require concentration, maybe data analysis, writing. And I know about a year ago, someone sent me a link. It was just after ChatGPT had come out. Someone sent me a link to another AI, and it took an article, an interview that I'd done, a podcast that I'd done, and created a report from it. And I was like going, oh no, I'm going to be replaced. That's it. And so for the next year, I think I was quite worried about the changes because, I don't know, it seemed like more worrisome than a bit more like Black Mirror, that BBC series, which is very dystopian. And then, but as I say,
you're talking about
meeting
what is
Sensay,
it? It's not Black Mirror though. It's number 9 or behind number 9 or something like that, right? That's the one you're talking about, the dystopian one. Or are you talking about Black Mirror? Black Mirror's on Netflix.
Oh, just Black Mirror in general. Sorry, just all the things. Yeah, Charlie Brunker. Is Charlie Brunker the guy who wrote them all? They're just clever. They're clever. Brooker. Yes, sorry, Brooker. So they're clever. But then, I say the last little while, I've said I want to get back into my fiction writing because I do a lot of I compose so many words the whole time as a journalist and writer, content producer. And as I said to you at the very start, it's like amazing because I wrote this entry for an RT, which is a national broadcaster, a competition, and it won. I'm like going, whoa, I'm onto something here. And then I haven't been writing properly in about, not fiction. I've written bits and pieces, but I wrote a novella based on a short story that I've written 3 or 4 years ago, purely based on using tech to upgrade it, if you like. And I'm going, whoa. So I actually feel now much more confident that, the people say that will AI take your jobs? No, but people with AI will take your jobs. So I think it's that kind of understanding that it's not, I thought it was doom and gloom a year ago. I really thought, oh, that's my career down the pan. I won't be able to, people will be using AI to do what I do. And I don't think so anymore. And I think I'm actually more excited because I can do so much more. I am suddenly, I'm going to say 10 times more productive than I was before. I can compare stuff, do ideation. I can use AI in my job every day and I don't use it as boring, like to do emails. I use it like I was writing a piece for the Examiner earlier today, and I had 2 stories, and I've written them at some time apart, but they were meant to be put in together to create one article. And so I got AI to analyze my 2 articles and say, what's the best way of tying these 2 up? Because there's been a period of like maybe 3 weeks between the 2 interviews, and I kind of lost one train of thought to do another. And I came up with various suggestions. I went, oh, that's clever. I'll use that. Whereas before I might have been struggling with it. So what's happening with Web3? Web3 is, I think, is very, very exciting. It's going at the speed of knots at the moment. It is crazy, but it's very exciting, and it's I'm more optimistic than not. I think I'm definitely more optimistic. For me, it's just like, and I have a publisher for my novella. Like, how crazy is that? Well, I have to confess, I might be the co-founder of the new publishing house, but if that's what it takes to get published, I have no qualms whatsoever. So it is exciting.
Yeah, whatever it takes to get something published, right? I think my first book was self-published, just through Amazon. Did everything, designed everything for it, and that was an interesting experience. So writing the whole thing, I did actually have an editor helping me out, and then self-publishing, had to do the designs for the cover. There are so many mistakes. It's so funny. I think there's like a grammatical error on the first page. The spine of the book doesn't even have any information, and and then there's no page numbers. That was a funny one. And so it's very funny when I went through that process myself. And then the thing is, I could have updated it at any time, but I leave it there with the with all of its flaws for what it is online. So
it is what it is.
Shameless self-plug, but anyone can buy my book on Amazon, Immortality in the Digital Age. Please go buy my book. But maybe the next one I'll come to you guys for the publishing house.
Yes, totally, because I work with Jeremy on and off over the years on different projects, and he has an assisted business where he helps people write their books, which is it's not a vanity press, but it helps people who have got something to say to actually do the whole process. So it's like a self-publishing on steroids, if you like. But also this one that we're putting together is going to be purely based on sales from the books. So it's not people who have something to say and who said it. So there's different options there. Sorry, I'm not trying to promote. I'm not trying to promote my new publishing exercise. But it is interesting.
Plug away all of our interests. And then, so obviously, in the last year, really, there's been a huge shift in the Web3 ecosystem in general. Obviously, I think the two drivers really were AI and meme coins, especially things around like Pump.fun and the Solana sort of like meme coin bonanza, extravaganza, craze, whatever you want to look at it. And I think there are lots of different takes on what's good or bad the meme coins do for the space. I don't know if you have a particular opinion either way.
I am glitching. Am I real or am I a digital twin? I don't know. Get in there. Sorry, it's my connection. I quite like meme coins. I don't trade them. I haven't lost money on them, and it's hard if people put money in, then they pumps and dumps and all the rest of it. I didn't like that trend with the people were launching the coins there when they were saying, if you don't buy my coin, I'm going to hang myself, and had it, that pump fund. They had some weird stuff going on there. But I think meme coins has been said to me by more than one person. It could be one of the entries into this space, because they're kind of fun and they're a bit daft, and it's like buying your collectibles back in the day, whatever the garbage pail kids, whatever the stuff that people used to collect back in the day. And so it is, it's disposable, and it's kind of fun. Although I do know some billionaires who've made a lot of money from meme coins, which is kind of weird, and nice if you can do it. It's not my thing, like I can do, sadly. So no, I quite like meme coins. They're kind of fun, and I think as long as you recognize them as being fun and don't over worry about them, like you can't be all sort of moralistic, going, oh, they're terrible, whatever. If they attract light, I mean, even Trump, you actually mentioned, meme coins and AI, but Trump, of course, is a huge influence on his administration, and the meme coins that he launched, and then Melania launched, and then somebody else, Barron launched, whatever. So they all pumped and dumped and rugged and the whole thing, whatever. So it's, yeah, I do like them. I think they can be a bit silly. There's a lot of money in them. If people make money, fair play. But I think it is a way of bringing them into mainstream conversation. So I quite like that.
Yeah.
And then the other AI, obviously. Sorry.
Yeah, I always just say that about meme coins, about how they, especially things like Dogecoin, they're always a bit of fun, right? So it's like almost like the white rabbit that leads Alice into the rabbit hole down to Wonderland. Yeah. It's the kind of thing that teases you in a bit, and then you find this entire incredible ecosystem of opportunities and things to build, and incredibly smart people building incredibly clever technology. I think that the meme coins have obviously went a bit too insane, but fun inevitably will always win. I think it probably went too far, right? With the Trumps, with the I think, what was the other one that really was a big flop? Pretty much the day after was something, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think that I'm in two minds about it, really. I think yes, it does bring new people in. At the same time, it's I think it's detracted away from the space in a way that we were in East Denver together, right? So I saw you there, and going around Denver, seeing how the development has changed and who's actually building and what people are building, and it feels like people between AI or meme coins, it feels like people are almost getting a bit lazier with building. There's not so many new ideas. I'm sure there are. Maybe I just haven't been paying too much attention, but it feels like there aren't as many new ideas coming out of Web3. It doesn't feel like there's, it feels like people are just focusing on quick cash grabs because they can, because the president of the United States is doing it. It feels like there's almost, a kind of a step back from people building interesting technology and really working towards adoption and distribution, and just building for the same hype and the same sort of circular flow of Web3 money. I don't know why I took a particularly negative view on that, but it just felt like there wasn't really any of the same people building, the really intelligent builders that were there in previous years. They seem to have not be there at the main conference or not be around. Maybe they are, maybe they're just in the shadows, maybe they just don't like the conferences anymore. Maybe it was just an unlucky downturn in the market at that time in February. But that was my kind of like takeaway from it. And it feels like the space has stagnated a bit. It's kind of waiting for that next narrative, that next sort of like hype cycle. But, obviously blockchain tech, but at the same time, you're saying about, this things like, Trump and world leaders launching coins. There's Millet was the one that launched and had a big issue with it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you've got news of like regulation finally coming through, enabling stablecoin transfers between governments. You've got this new sort of BRICS currency being developed, being built on top of blockchain. You've got finalization of transactions globally, and people using Bitcoin at scale as a as an alternative to get around crazy restrictions. And you do see entire like countries adopting. I mean, I spend probably more time in Venezuela than I should, but even there, like people use Binance as a form of payment because the local currency and the local banks are just too difficult to deal with. So everyone just pays each other with USDT or USDC or crypto or through Binance. But they do it for everything. They pay for their phone top-ups there. They pay their utility bills. They literally pay for every service you can imagine, their phone bills, everything, all through the crypto. So I feel like, I guess my point is on the one hand, there's been a sort of a shift in my mind, or at least what I can see in terms of new developments and people building, I guess, interesting infrastructure and new ideas. And the other hand, where adoption is at some point finally happening, but more on just the sort of transactional level. But I don't know if there are some particular examples you have that you've seen over the last few months in the space that might be interesting enough to kind of change my mind.
Well, a couple of days ago, I interviewed a founder of Artisan.fund. Have you heard of them? It's again, and this is I quite like interviewing. As I love doing founders because they're very interesting people, and it's a great privilege to be able to speak with people. But he's been going for a while, and basically he looks at. Sorry, this is a project that I quite enjoy because I like people who are building stuff, and he looks at the funding for the arts, which is antiquated. It's who it's in silos. And then 60% of it is absorbed by administration. It's like it's a pretty dire thing. And as we know, I often say, I could be a mediocre plumber and support my family, but I have to be an exceptional writer to support my family through my writing, which I think is very unfair. And it's the same with the arts, people who are artists. You can't just be a regular artist. Not that you can't, but it's very hard to do it and support your family. So I don't know, like the world seems to be a bit crazy. But he set up this lovely platform where the funds come in. Sometimes it's brands, sometimes it's individuals. They match funds. They've given out about nearly 3 million, I think, in grants. They're kind of grants, but they're matched grants. And it's a way of people accessing funds, and it's using it abstracts the wallet way, so people don't need to know anything about blockchain after that. And it has been successful. And there's a couple of projects that I'm looking at that are just, I'm going, oh, that is interesting. So I think there are things happening. People are beginning to use the technology to do stuff as opposed to just to build meme coins, whatever. And I mean, meme coins are nice, they're lovely, but they're not exactly going to add to the sum of human happiness. And if they're there or they're not there. But there are projects all the time. I mean, real world assets is another big, huge hot topic, of course, the hot topic for this year. And everything is a real world asset, from, your trainers and your NFTs and all the different stuff going on. And I mean, but it is addressing stuff. Like it's addressing stuff in terms of like illiquid assets, property, data. Like I'm speaking with somebody who's doing a project. We're looking at, there's a lot of data in the public, which was what everything the LLMs have all been trained on. But in a lot of companies, there's a lot of data in there that hasn't been used. It's siloed. And in terms of like productivity, how do you help people be more productive in a company? And this project is looking at taking all the information that's available and it's immediate, not using like reports and surveys and customer feedback forms for employee feedback forms, taking information down to like how much time you spend on a particular app or how you respond here, and using it to generate reports and awareness that would genuinely help productivity. But also, it's not just productivity, it's well-being, because well-being is one of the big issues that we have. So I think what's interesting is that we've got a lot of data in this world, but we're starting to use AI in particular to analyze it and make it valuable, because there's no point having loads of data in the back garden. You need to be able to sort of comb through it and come up with things that actually make sense. So I think we're starting to see some of that, and some exciting projects that are like quite big, and whoa, I couldn't have done that before AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And even so, I just spent the last few days in Rio de Janeiro for Web Summit, and same kind of conversations I was having there. So around this idea of making data more useful, more productive, and processing data in a way that wasn't possible before. And one of the use cases for Sensay that was I talked about a lot, met a lot of people and was engaged with them on, was around this whole idea of the offboarding process at most companies, most governments, most organizations. When someone leaves a company for whatever reason, whether it's handing a notice for moving to a different job, or retiring, or for I don't know, even just disappearing for a few months for holidays or maternity, paternity leave, or whatever it may be, sabbaticals. The idea, usually people do some kind of handover, and the handover document might be too little information, which is not that useful, or it might be too much, in which case people don't have the time to read it around their usual work. So how lots of companies haven't really solved this issue, and there's a huge amount of people, obviously baby boomers retiring in the coming years. There's a huge amount of people just rotating through jobs, and that whole handover process hasn't really had much of a change in forever, right? Some people are just good at handover, some people aren't. Some people are good at retraining, and some companies are good at at sort of passing that on. But it's not really, it's still very antiquated in the way it's done. And yet with AI, and especially specifically with replicas, we actually have this opportunity to create replicas of people during that transition period to capture that knowledge, that tacit knowledge, that know-how, that customer and client experience, understand it from the horse's mouth, and understand what they are looking at specifically, that makes them most relevant for that job, and actually understand where they were at certain projects and certain customers and clients, and with what they were dealing with certain team members. And by creating a replica of them, you can actually create this really interactive format for the future, so that the company can actually retain that knowledge and that information in a usable format. Because the handover docs might be passed on to a manager, and then get filed away somewhere, and maybe they get referenced, maybe they don't. But rarely, does any of that information get passed on, especially messages don't get passed on, whereas key facts from messages could be extracted, and they could be plugged into a replica to train that replica in a good enough way that it could actually become useful to the people. So for us, obviously that's a very shameless plug to what we're building at Sensay, but the idea that AI has come along and makes that sort of data more coherent, more interactive, it just becomes this whole world of opportunity of what we can do with it, and especially in the huge amount of data that previously was unaddressed and untouched.
I love the concept behind that, because even if someone's good at handover, you still have to, in the old-fashioned way, you got to read through stuff, or they say, look at this video, look at that, but you can interrogate the replica, and that's the difference. So if that person was still there and not swanning around Rio, whatever, having a great time, you could say, well, how did you do this, and why is that important, and where do I get this information? As if the person was still there, they would help you. So I think that's really powerful. It's not even like the presentation of the data; it's the ability to interrogate it to suit the person who wants to extract information from it. That's very, very powerful.
Yeah, completely. And as part of the research, we found out that there's a huge amount of companies that will, especially on the retiring end, will pay these retirees another year or two just to have them available should they need to ask them something. Or people get brought back in as consultants. The amount of people who get brought back in as consultants into the previous companies they worked at because that knowledge they had, or they couldn't find someone quick enough to actually fill that position. And all of this just seems just so inefficient to me, because as soon as someone gets brought back in as a freelancer or as a consultant, and I think PR is a particularly bad field for that, right? I think PR, when you work in house, is, especially in the UK, is relatively low paid. But then as soon as it's a freelancer who could have worked for the same company a month ago, as soon as they get brought back in, they end up charging 3 times the amount or 4 times the amount, just as a freelance PR person for them. So it's it really feels like there's a big sort of value lift for companies, individuals to have these replicas. And even then, if it isn't using the term in the way of retiring or as a consultant, there's still the opportunity to reward the person who created the replica with some kind of financial kickback for their replica being used. And so they get a continuous stream of passive income on the side of whatever they go on to next.
I like that idea. That's nice. And also
it's
with people with the pension progress. Yeah, well, it's also, if you think about it, with the pension bomb's really gone off, as we all know, and there's not enough people working, and there's more people living longer, and the pensions aren't worth anything, and you know all these kind of crazy things. So ways to extend your working life without actually working, as in it depends. Obviously, some people, like I'm a writer, I'll never stop working unless my brain goes, and then I'll stop working. But I mean, as a writer, writers don't retire; they keep on. Right, like farmers don't retire; they die with their boots on. So there are some professions that don't retire, but for people who do, maybe if you're in a clerical position or you're working for a public service or a private company, or whatever, it's a nice idea to think that you can leave some of your knowledge and get paid for it. That's fair on both sides. The company still keeps your knowledge, and you get a few bob that you can go out and go on holidays to Rio for.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to sort of bring it back for a last kind of question for you, before we move on to some community questions and community updates. When you were researching digital twins and this technology, obviously you interviewed a few people and a few different companies, and you've even incorporated it into your novella as well. What's been the most sort of interesting either application of this type of technology or the most interesting idea for what this could be in the future that you've seen?
Well, I think sometimes the personal one is and this has been covered on Black Mirror. People who see it as a British episodic series of dystopian futures, but it's very close to the norm, so it's very, very well done. But I think the personal thing, so but the corporate thing, that actually makes great sense. I've got a lot of years and years of doing this. By all means, take my experience and interrogate my replica. That's fine, and pay me a few bob. I'm very happy with that. I think the thing that makes it a bit spooky is, after, if I create a replica and if I choose to leave it around after I die, that's kind of interesting. In the one hand, it's really gratifying. Like I interviewed somebody, I have a couple of radio stations here now, and I interviewed a lady who was 90, who went to my school, living in Canada at the moment, but came back for the annual school dinner. And I have a little radio show, so I said, "Oh, come on, we talk about your experience then and now, whatever." And it was really fun. But I was thinking afterwards, and I sent it off to her daughters, and she can get the link, so her grandchildren too as well. Sorry, which is interesting. But I thought, I wish I'd done that with my mom. My mom died last year, and I didn't do that with mom, and I'm sorry that I didn't. And so I think on the one hand, it's really nice to be able to preserve voice, tone, character, so people either who knew you or again who didn't know, great grandchildren perhaps or great grandchildren who didn't know, to find out who Granny Jill was. That is interesting. It's also a bit scary, and I think the question that really makes me ask this question: Does your replica update over time, or does it stay in a point in time? So if I die, whatever, and I'm there, am I always that point? And I mean, and I used the example when I was interviewing, I think it was Stacey. I said, like, you could take quite a reasonable thing, like, for example, 100 years ago, women didn't have the vote. So, that was a very acceptable concept at the time. Women weren't intelligent enough to vote, period. That was just it. I mean, obviously the suffragettes were just starting at that point. But so in 100 years' time, how many of my opinions and views will be so outmoded? And do I want them to change, or do I not want them to change? So that for me is on the personal side. Do I grow and change as a replica if I stay on afterwards, or do I just be a snapshot in time?
Yeah, essentially, it's definitely like the static or the dynamic replicas concept. I've talked quite a lot about it in the past, and especially when it does come to this kind of like memorial tech type approach to what Sensay could be applied to. And yeah, do you want it to continually learn and improve and adapt to the situation, or do you want it just to be a photo of that time? I think there's a good case for both, and to be used in different ways. So I think both should be available, really. But yeah, it's interesting, like how these replicas will change society, how they'll change our approach to individualism and each other, how it's already not just through replicas, but how AI is already changing the way that we talk and interact with each other, the way we already search for search for knowledge and understanding, just different concepts and how we're learning. I mean, since the voice to voice come out, and I spent a lot of time in Latin America, the amount of people who have like daily hour-long conversations with ChatGPT, just talking about anything, learning from it, interacting with it, just asking it questions and just having it on voice mode all the time as an interactive thing is actually incredible to see. And I think it's weird because I don't see that many people in the Western world using it that way, but in in Latin America, it's really taken off in terms of like this conversational sort of assistant that's just there as part of their life now. So it'll be amazing when that personalization that replicas can bring as an interaction, as an evolution of that, how we actually then treat these replicas going forward, both the people like contemporarily, in the past, or just fictitious characters that people create for whatever purpose they need it for.
I think anything that makes you question and think about stuff more is good. It hurts the brain, but it's very good for the soul.
Yeah. Right, and on that note, we're going to go on to some quick Sensay updates. Thank you very much, Liam. We'll bring you back for some questions shortly. For anyone joining us on any channel, on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter, or Telegram, or Discord, please feel free to ask any questions, and we will answer some of those very shortly after a quick update. We'll bring Lars back in. And for anyone who's new to Sensay and would like to get more involved, we also have our Quest platform where you can actually earn points that can be exchanged for Sensay tokens or some of our swag from our shop. So t-shirts, hats, sunglasses, socks, jackets, backpacks, those kind of things. But if you go to the Quest platform, you can start earning points today through social activities, helping out with BD and marketing activities, as well as different incentives and different points for creating and training your replicas. So please do get involved with that. Lars, you want to give us a quick community update?
Yes, it's been quite the week. As Sensay token has been rising about 50 or 45% this past week, almost double in value. We have a lot of old community members coming back in like, hey, what's happening? And actually coming live back in the chat. It's really amazing to see how people, even though they're quiet for a long time, they still come back to us all the time. And we also have our lovely mini app. I do want to inform people that remember to always check in once every 30 days, especially with your MetaMask, because it is coded to lock off once in a while. So make sure that you're always sure you have your wallet connected, especially for your booster within the mini app.
Yes, thank you. And then, so just the general Sensay updates this week. The team have been at Token 2049 in Dubai, and some of us were at Web Summit in Rio. And so the whole thing has been about showing off what Sensay is doing. We use these events, these conferences, as a chance to, find out what's new in the space, find out what's coming up and which different potential partners and customers there are, but also as a way of showcasing our latest developments. And it's, we always get an incredibly positive response from these events because, we show off what we've been doing and how far we've come, and it's a good reflection on what we've been building. Specifically, around the last week, for anyone who noticed the announcement of the last week, was our chat widget. So this chat widget you can find on any of our social platforms, or just have a look on our website on sensay.io. You'll be able to find my little face in the corner as an interactive chatbot. So what this means is that your replica can now be used on any website as an embeddable chatbot, so that you can actually customize and tailor your experience for your customers, for your clients, for interactions, or just as an interesting way of having visitors to your website interact with you as a person. Now, this could be both for you as an individual, your team, anyone from your team, or even just as a sort of a generic character or brand persona for you. So any of those can now be embeddable as a website widget with a great new user interface. It's customizable, and you can lead it on with leading questions, and then even be able to check on the responses and understand some of the customer metrics that go into that. We're working on a few new integrations as well with different CRM systems, so it's only going to get better and more advanced. So if you do get a chance to try it out, please do test it out. Build your replica on sensay.io. Add the chat widget as to your site. It will give you some nice embed code, and then feel free to give us any feedback, and we can learn and improve from there. So we're always encouraging anyone to obviously test out what we're doing. But the website widget really is a great functioning product that we've launched in the last week and had a huge update for it. What else we have to? And yeah, in upcoming news, we've got our next showcase, our next sort of demo day coming up at the end of this month. So keep your eyes peeled for announcements in the next few days. So that we're going to have some big sort of big announcements and big product releases to show off. And it's going to be fantastic all round. So the end of May should be a really great month for us all round. I know the team got their heads down, they're building very, very fast and getting stuff out now. So we've got some really exciting things in the works, and excited to see some of that come out. I think it is time to answer some of these questions. We've seen a few, and just a reminder for anyone watching, listening, please do ask questions on Twitter, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and you'll be able to see it, and we'll bring up the questions live and answer them. So please ask anything you like for myself, Lars, or Gillian, and we'll be able to answer them. And just been reminded that we also have our hackathon going on at the moment. So this is, if you look at Dora Hacks and you search for Sensay, so it's dorahacks.io. Yeah, dorahacks.io, and the hackathon is, I believe, labeled under Sensay, but let me just double check and how that can be found. Yeah, so it's on the first page of the hackathon pages, and so it's a great opportunity to get involved with Sensay and the hackathon we have going right now for a possible $10,000 prize. So the hackathon is around education, so it's taking Sensay's technology, taking our stack basically, and applying it via our API to train and interact with replicas for education. So this could be anything. This could be from personal tutors. It could be to a specific sort of grade in a specific country. So it could be year 4, 5, 6 in the UK. It could be grade 11, 12, 13, or some kind of equivalent. It could be personalized tutoring. It could be skills-based education, where you could look at some kind of like interactive option for maybe museums to interact with visitors and educate them that way. There's plenty of different applications for how this can be used. So we're encouraging any developers, any entrepreneurs to get involved with the hackathon, use the API, build out a solution, whether you build it, whether you use AI to build it. And at the end of the month, I think that, yes, at the end of the month, there's the deadline. And so we'll do a submission day for that, and we'll be awarding not only a $10,000 prize, but some other prizes and some follow-up milestones with grants as well for anyone who then continues to build on top of it. So it's a really great opportunity to get really heavily involved in the Sensay ecosystem and build out different solutions like we've seen before, like Coles, like we've seen with Drafter, and a few other different integrations that have been built already on Sensay. So yeah, we encourage anyone to get involved. With that, I guess we can bring up a question and probably bring back Gillian, because I think one question is going to be maybe particularly relevant.
I saw a very interesting one for her indeed.
No.
Yes. So
how can journalists use Sensay replicas?
I saw that
Gillian?
question. I'm exploring. I'm going to plead the fifth and say I'll come back at a later date, because I haven't quite figured. Well, I tell you what, there's one thing I'm definitely doing, because I've also self-published a number of books, and I'm going to work with Daniel in Sensay to put up a little bot on my reader page, so people can ask what are the books about, or so that's definitely do it that way. Other things I'm not quite sure yet. I'm sure there's lots of ways that I can use it, but I'm only finding my feet. So sorry, don't have an answer. I'll come back again when I have some answers. Sorry about that.
So yeah, I have some ideas. So for example, I don't use it from a journalistic standpoint, but definitely from the other side of that. So if we get interview inquiries either from journalists or from let's say students doing thesis on like AI chatbots, or just knowledge management or something relevant in general, which happens probably once or twice a week, I will often use my replica as a way of interacting with them. So I'll let them say, why don't you go and interview the replica first, and then if you want me to double check the answers, I'll come back to you. So that from my side is really interesting. I think from the journalist side, what it could do is obviously journalists, like anyone, they have knowledge, they have their understanding, they have their their way of working, that there are a certain approach to questions and a certain approach to interviews. So, and like everyone, they probably get some kind of interview block as well, like writer's block. So having a replica that's trained on your thought process, on the style of interviews you like to give, on the thought process that goes into it, the research that goes into it, a journalist could leverage a replica really, really well to, actually, come up with a series of tough or light questions or relevant questions for someone, especially in a field they don't necessarily understand. So it can apply that same thought process, that same research principle to a new field or a new person, to be able to essentially tailor the questions to them, instead of, because sometimes, especially in crypto, especially in AMAs and those kind of things, you get hit with the most generic, boring questions that everyone asks. And so by having more interesting, tailored questions that could be created by a journalist replica, because they're busy, they've got writing, they've got deadlines and editors and everything else, they need to be there. They don't always manage to get the research done, but by having an AI that does the research in their style, in their way, as a replica of them, even sending the replica to actually interview the person possibly, could be a really nice application for that there.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
I use AI, not the replica. I use AI when I'm looking at, someone says, when I do interviews, I normally do them conversationally. So I have an idea of the different themes that I want to address, but the questions and the direction comes from the conversation. So it's a particular style that I have. It's whatever. Some people like to do bang. So when I've used AI to generate questions in advance of an interview, when I actually do the interview, some people say, "Oh, please send me questions." So okay, here's some questions, and I do the AI to do it. I never follow them, so I think there would be a disconnect between how I would make my journalist replica, actually know how to go off piste and when to stay on the questions.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's only because of my conversational style of interviews. So
no, I think it's very true.
Although I also know other journalists. So I can say I also know journalists on the radio here in Ireland are very good, but they ask question after question, and they're just answering. They don't even relate back to the answer.
Yeah.
They have a next question, and it works. It's the style, different style. But anyway, so I think my conversational style might prove more difficult.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm quite similar. So yeah, maybe some kind of advanced version of it that can even, in live form, be able to actually listen to the questions and then come up with some suggested follow-up questions based on that, or some kind of live support in terms of where to steer this. And even especially the same problem happens every week. We always overrun here because we get waylaid talking about interesting things. So some kind of journalist support bot that could pull it back to stay on time and keep things moving in the right direction and get you full circle back to closing points. But anyway, thanks for that question. That was
well, I've done that too as well. I used to have a number of live radio shows in studio, and if you had to finish, there was a news service that came in, so you had to be exact to within a second of finishing your program, because the live feed came in and the live feed didn't wait for anybody. So that's quite well, I'm sure a replica do that as well, but it's a skill. You're kind of there, right?
Yeah.
And that's all for today. And now we have the news. So it's kind of funny. Okay.
Yeah, I've always been a big admirer of how they can do that. Let's bring up another question.
Let's see what we have. So Wishlink comes in with, how many replicas does Sensay have now, and what can they do?
Tens of thousands of replicas created since day one. So definitely quite a large number. I think it's definitely over 20,000. It's probably over 30,000 by now. So a huge amount of different replicas that come in, and they're used for all sorts of things. Lots of replicas are created for personal use. Lots of created for as almost a therapeutic process of just self-reflection. But then also there's the people who use it for productivity. So lots of people using the new chat widget, lots of people using the Telegram bots and Discord bots, and having it as an interactive chatbot version themselves for customer service, sales, community management. People more and more using it for knowledge management in general, and a way of actually capturing themselves to pass on to their kids, their grandkids, or also just as a way of passing on to future colleagues and workers. And since a few different integrations have come along through things like the email drafting and social posting through X, lots of people are now starting to use Sensay as a opportunity, as an extension for themselves to help them drafting messages and writing messages in all sorts of different formats as a really useful sort of tool for themselves. So we've seen a huge amount of different use cases, which is great. And so we're just really trying to be as best as we can for the different use cases.
I know I go in to ask your replica a lot of questions once in a while, because I know you get so many DMs all the time. So I just want to linger it off myself.
I talk to Dan Bolt all the time. It's very useful. It's therapeutic, but it's also useful to have something that's trained on your own knowledge and understanding and thought process. To it could be as simple as finding a good restaurant. It could be as simple as finding something to do this weekend. But
we are human. We do forget.
Yeah, but it's not about forgetting. It's just about inspiration, really. Like if you've got something that's trained to be like you and trained to respond in the way you would and have the same thought process, the same likes, then having something that is there that can give you suggestions based on the things you like, based on you, then it becomes a really useful tool, just as a bit of a second brain, almost as a quick self-reflection.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun conversations once in a while. So let's see what we have coming next for us. So, Joan Maringo, still on the topic of integration, your replica, how do you make sure the AI replica stays accountable when handling complex or changing tasks? And how do you measure how productive it compared to the original person?
Great question. Accountability is interesting because the replicas can only really respond in with the data you've given them. So sure, they might be tricked from time to time, but in the same way like a person can be tricked, and sure they might forget something, and that's occasional. In the same way that we are fallible as humans as well. We say certain things one week and then change our minds a week after in terms of process. So in terms of like similarities, it's quite up there. I think that the productivity question of how productive it is compared to the real person depends on the person, depends on the use case, and depends on the quality of the replica that's being built. Like my replica answers, and I answer probably 500 to 1,000 messages every single day, probably more. But my replica answers at least double of those every single day. And my replica is used in different formats. It's used on voice, video. It's used in the website. It's used on our social pages, and it's used everywhere really. And it drafts my emails, and it does loads of things for me as well. So in terms of like how productive it is, it's still not to say it answers twice as many messages as me isn't saying that it's more productive, because it's not doing the same, but it is offloading a lot of noise from me. So it helps me to be more productive. It's not necessarily about how productive it is compared to me, because it's always going to be less, right? But even a 10, 15, 20% uplift in my productivity, or 10, 15, 20% saving on my time, because I don't have to read those messages, because Replica's pre-interviewed people for job positions because it's done all these different things, then it's already answered certain questions. It just makes everything that much more effective and productive for me. So it's not about replacing us. It's never about replacing us as individuals. It's actually about having something that complements you, works with you, and actually improves the way that you operate day to day by taking up some of the slack and just helping you. So that's where it's a really incredible technology to see how the productivity boosts can come in, not because it's more productive or different to you, but because it's an extension of you that can pick up some of the tasks that take up your time that could be easily done by an AI.
And that is the main thing. I try to trigger AI sometimes. I could never get it to say what I wanted to say. And that's the good thing about what the devs actually made, because they made it so secure that you can't even get it off topic. Believe me, I tried way too much.
Yeah. All right.
So
I think we have one more
right?
question. Yeah.
So, Wishling, Do you use AI to write Sensay code? Is there a replica for it?
Good question. We have replicas that have been built as software developers. We use AI for writing lots of code, as does everyone these days. So things like Cursor, Windsurf, GitHub, Copilot. So there are plenty of use of AI throughout the team, but it's still overseen by humans for now. Even though the replicas are getting better, the AI is getting better, and some of the use cases for it are getting better. But yeah, for now, it's still very much a human oversight leverage with AI. And I think that's probably the biggest sort of kind of picking back up with what Gillian was saying earlier about how AI is not necessarily going to replace us, but people who leveraging AI, will be the most productive going forward. So we centralize ourselves around AI usage and leveraging AI for our own benefit as well. So it's it's something that we use a lot of, and probably AI does most of the legwork now, but there's still obviously that sort of human oversight, that human manager. And on that note, I guess we'll bring back Gillian for any last thoughts. Let's see if Gillian's still around. There she is. Yeah, Gillian, any last thoughts, comments on anything?
Good question. Sorry, I was distracted there a little bit. I just think one thought I do have, and you mentioned earlier that we met in Denver, which was super because it's so nice to meet people in the flesh, because you could talk endlessly online, whatever. And so I wonder, will replicas ever replace the in real life exchanges, and do we want them to? Sorry, that's an open question, not a closing comment.
I mean,
sorry.
that's exactly the type of thought-provoking comment we end up on here. So that's very, very, I think it's a great kind of point to leave it on. And how can people find you if they're looking for you?
I'm mostly on LinkedIn. It's kind of a good thing for business stuff. I do a bit of Twitter as well, but LinkedIn mostly I think is very, with my name, because I'm a journalist, so it's Gillian Gotzel wherever you look.
Fantastic. Lars, any last thoughts?
Well, always stay active in our community, follow the updates, and follow everything coming from the team as we are in the chat. We are there for you every day.
Good. And yeah, so for everyone else, feel free to find us at sensay.io, or you can find us at Ask Sensay on any channels. Or for myself, I'm at Sensay Dan on pretty much every social platform you can find. We're always open to answering any questions throughout the week. Don't have to wait for the community calls, but if you do, at the same time every Friday, and feel free to just drop your questions in during the call or during the week, and we'll get around to answering them. Thanks guys for joining us today, and thanks everyone for watching.
Are you ready for your digital twin? Let's go back.
It's rewind time.
The birth of communication. The wonder of hearing a voice from miles away.
Hello. Just a minute, please.
Then, the IT revolution, connecting us not just by voice, but by data.
The world is at your fingertips.
The mobile revolution. We ventured into the world connected like never before. The smartphone era. More connected than ever, closer than ever, which all became a bit overwhelming. Too much information, too many demands. Imagine if you had a helping hand. You, hundreds of you, teaching, scheduling, engaging, buying, selling, your digital AI replica. Helping you focus on what really matters. It's your revolution. The revolution of you. The very best of